Let's take a look at an application of quadratic functions. So here we are, we've got the profit function for a company. Cal's Calculator Company sells calculators, and this is their profit function from selling X calculators in a given day. And again, the owner of this business is Mr. Calculus, my good friend. But anyway, that will be a parabola, ax squared bx c. And in fact, I again would recommend that we identify the a as being -2, and the b would equal 220 here, and c would equal -2000. All right, and then let's run through it. So the first thing I would suggest here, before you worry about all the words, is graph the thing. And this would be very similar to the last question on your homework assignment, where we have an application that's comparable to this. It's not a profit function, but it's, it's an application. So there's your recipe. X equals -b, which is 220, over 2 divided by a, which is -2. So this will be -220 divided by -4, and that turns out to be +55. So x equals 55. And so I thought the scale for x would make sense to go by tens. Remember then, every one of these is 10. X is how many calculators they sold in a given day. Keep that in mind. So if we go to x equals 55 on that x-axis, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, it'd be halfway between 50 and 60. And there's your x equals 55, your axis of symmetry. All right. And then as mentioned earlier, 55 would be the value of x within our vertex. So that'll dump in right there. And now we're going to put 55 into the function, p of 55. Now, in the context of this question, what we're basically saying is, what would be the profit if we sold 55 calculators in a given day? So, we go put 55 in for x. And this is again going to be basically the order of operations. If we go replace all the x's in that profit function with 55 and do arithmetic, and square this, then take it times this, multiply these. Order of operations, assignment 1, all right? I can't reinvent the wheel every time we move on. So I would hope that that number crunching is mechanical for you at this point. And so I'll give you a minute, hit pause, whatever you want to do. I worked it out ahead of time. I hope you have a number, all right? Let's go ahead and lay down our cards. That should come out to be 4,050. 4,050. So the ordered pair of 55 calculators produces a profit of $4,050. So looking at that, I was thinking that the Y scale would be nice to use 1,000, right? Okay, so let's see. The ordered pair, 55, 4050. Here's 55 we've already found. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. So that would be a shade above 4,000. And just for the record, I'm going to go ahead and label the fact that that's the ordered pair, 55, 4050. All right, that's our vertex. Mechanical cookbook. All right, what direction does it open? Well, the value of a is less than 0, so that indicates downward. So this parabola will open downward. All right, keep that in mind. That's important for later on. Y-intercept, we plug 0 in for x. We do it every time. I've left up the things that are the same every time on the board from one question to the next. You can do that in your head, because if you put in 0 for x here and here, the two terms that have x basically become 0, and we're left with the -2000 sticking on the end. And so we'll plot that point. When x is 0, y would be -2000. I want to remind you, we scaled the y-axis by thousands, so that was 2 down here, wasn't it? Real quick, if they sell 0 calculators, their profit is going to be -$2,000. They're going to lose money if they don't sell any calculators. I would hope that would make sense to us. All right. Hit pause if you need to. I think I'm going to make some room for Xintercepts here, because this requires a little bit of work. And I'm sorry to have to, all right, so hit pause, write it down. I'd recommend you guys take notes like you would in class and write these examples down. You can look at them as you're doing your homework, all right? But anyway, the idea of x-intercepts, does it even have them to begin with? That's the question I always ask first. Well, I use visualization. And so when looking at that, I'd say, well, here's our vertex. Okay, it's up here. Here's the x-axis, remember, right? Here's the vertex above it. And it opens down. So those two things taken together, up here, vertex up here, opens down. Yeah, it's going to hit the x-axis somewhere over here. Looks like it's going to hit it somewhere over here. There's going to be two of them. There's going to be 2 points where this graph crosses the x-axis. And again, those points are always found by plugging 0 in for y, which I want to remind you is always the function, right? F of x, g of x, p of x, that's another name for y. So plugging 0 in for y is basically the same thing then as 0 equals negative 2x squared, and so forth. Now, let's talk about it real quick. When a company has a profit of 0, what do they call that in business? Yes, they break even. We're looking for break-even points here, basically. How many calculators do we have to sell to have a profit of 0, otherwise known as breaking even? All right, now this is a quadratic equation, so doodle-doo, doodle-doo. Wouldn't this be a flashback to assignment 11? Okay, and so you flash back to assignment 11, quadratic equations, and basically you're noticing every time, if we happen to have x-intercepts, which I'll remind you does not always happen, but we're always going to be here at the standard form when we set this equal to 0. And so then we hope that it factors, and if it won't, we'll do the quadratic formula. All right? Well, so this is old stuff. Here, we can factor out negative 2. And then, oh look! Wouldn't that factor as x minus 10 and x minus 100? All right? And then if we set each of these equal to 0, now remember that the number negative 2 equals 0 leads to nothing, right? Negative 2 equals 0, that's nothing, don't worry about it. But if you set x minus 10 equal to 0, that will solve out as x equals 10, and that would be the value of x on one of these points. So one of our intercepts is the ordered pair, 10, 0, parentheses, comma, the whole deal. All right? And then if you set x minus 100 equal to 0, and add the 100 over, that will lead to x equals 100. Let's go plot these. Keeping in mind, we scaled the x-axis by tens. So the ordered pair 10, 0 would be right there, and the ordered pair 100, 0, let's see, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, would be there. I always check for symmetry when I plot those. I want to remind you this is 55, so from 55 down to 10 is 45 units, and from 55 to 100 is also 45 units. Yay! So then we can graph this thing. I always start up here and go, all right, down here, through here, and onward. And make sure your graph hits the points that you plotted. That's the whole point of plotting them. Okay, so there you go with that. And I think we're done with the mechanical stuff. So once again, hit pause if you need to catch up to that, look at it, think about it, because what we're about to do now is to say, okay, now that we have built our beautiful graph doing the mechanical things that we've practiced without even talking yet hardly about application, let's use that graph to answer some questions. And again, the final question on assignment 22 will be like this. You'll build a graph doing the mechanical things we've practiced, and then you answer a couple of questions based on that graph. So, in looking at part A, it says, how many calculators do they need to sell in order to maximize their profit? Well, look, your profit is your vertical axis, and wouldn't the maximum profit occur at that highest point on the graph, otherwise known as the vertex? So, to maximize their profit, this is the point where that's going to happen. The highest point on the graph, maximize the profit. And wouldn't the 55 be how many calculators they would need to sell for that to happen? So there you go. The answer to part A here would be 55 calculators. Part B. What is the actual maximum profit? Well, again, maximum profit's going to occur at that vertex. And wouldn't the $4,050 be the actual amount of maximum profit they can make? So there you go. Those questions both relate basically to the vertex. And guess what? So will the corresponding questions on the assignment. They'll have to do with the vertex. Okay? Hint, hint, whatever. All right. So there we go with that. I think we're done on that one. And enjoy. Good luck.